what is that? And she said, it's a turtle. And he says, what is the turtle resting on? And she says, it's turtles all the way down. You know, this art critic came to my studio, and I asked him, what is his opinion of my work? And I said, and he said, it's worthless. And I said, no, but I'd like to hear it anyway. So this artist comes home, and he finds his house has been burned down, and his family's been murdered. And he asks the fireman, what happened? And he explained to him, that's what happened. And he says, the museum director came to your house, murdered your family, and burned your house down. And the artist says, you mean the museum director came to my house? How many Freudian analysts does it take to change a light bulb? One to hold the penis, the ladder. This Chinese couple were in bed, and the husband says to the wife, can we have 69 tonight? And the wife says, you mean you want beef and broccoli now? I was reading this book on anti-gravity, and I can't put it down. Guy walks into a bar, and he's got a dog with him, and the bartender says, I'm sorry, no dogs are allowed. And he says, but it's a seeing eye dog. And the bartender says, you mean they give chihuahuas the seeing eye dogs? And the guy says, you mean they gave me a chihuahua? This artist goes to the doctor, and he says, every time I sneeze, I have an orgasm. And the doctor says, are you taking anything for it? And he says, yeah, ground pepper. Guy goes to the doctor, and he says, I have 5 penises. And the doctor says, how do your pants fit? And he says, like a glove.
Oh, that's a good one.
This artist goes to the doctor, and he says, the doctor says, I'm sorry, you've only got 3 minutes to live. And the guy says, well, is there anything you can do for me? And the doctor says, I can boil you an egg. Guy goes in the restaurant, and he says, this just happened to me recently. And he goes in the restaurant, and he says, how do you prepare your chickens? To the waiter. And the waiter says, nothing special, we just tell them they're going to die. 2 cannibals were eating a clown. One of them says, does this taste funny to you?
I've heard that one before.
René Descartes, the French philosopher, goes into a bar, and the bartender says, would you like a beer? And he says, I think not. And he disappeared. This Buddhist goes to a hot dog stand, and he says, make me one with everything. So he gets the hot dog, and he gives him a $20 bill on it. And the guy says, where's my change? And the guy says, change comes from within. A nun goes into the Mother Superior's office, and she says, I'm sorry, I have to report that we have a case of syphilis in the convent. And the Mother Superior says, oh, I'm so relieved. I was getting so tired of the Chablis. This is a true story. This happened in the 50s. Frank Lloyd Wright was designing the Guggenheim Museum. And he was friends with Alexander Calvert. And he said, Alexander, I'm designing this round museum up by the park, and I can see one of your mobiles hanging down from the center in gold. And Alexander Calvert says, I don't care what metal it's made out of as long as I can paint it black. A Freudian slip is when you say one thing but you mean your mother. Teacher says there's no language to the students where a double positive is a negative, and the student says, yeah, right. Okay, this is another serious one. This is something I wrote in 1991. for the public art project in San Francisco. It's a Notes on Public Sculpture. Sculpture is about the relationship of forms in space. It should grace the landscape, not be symmetrical. Use the geometry of nature. Have good proportions. Be controversial at first. Become a thing of pride to the public. Have a subject. Make a point. Be symbolic of something. Not be generic abstract. It should be sensitive to where it is. Work with its neighboring objects. Emphasize local character. Have a social element. Use shadows. Be a spirit in the dark. It is an object that draws you to it. Has poetry or technological information. Predicts the future. Allows your imagination to travel to the past. It should bring people up to the level of art. Fight against a world of standardization. Have layers of meaning. Be open to interpretation. Not be painted red. A little red goes a long way. It should have more than one side. Not emit obnoxious sounds. Consider acoustics. Reject vandalism and encourage participation. So I have this theory that in the 7th year of every decade, the next decade is predicted. For instance, Picasso invented Cubism in 1907, and that predicted the art of the next decade. In 1917, Duchamp exhibited his urinal, which predicted the Dada movement of the next decade. In 1927 was the invention of regionalism, which predicted the 30s. And in 1937 was the beginning of the WPA project, which was the art of the 40s. In 1947, Jackson Pollock did his first drip painting, and that predicted the abstract expressionist movement of the 50s. 1957, Rauschenberg and Johns did the first pop art paintings, and that predicted the art of the 60s. 1967, Sol LeWitt wrote his sentences on conceptual art, and that predicted the art of the 70s. 1977, Julian Schnabel invented neo-expressionist painting, and that was the art of the 80s. 1977, Jeff Koons, a neo-pop artist, invented that movement, which was the art of the 80s, or the 90s. I mean, in 1997 was the invention of internet art, which predicted the first decade of this century. And in 2007, I had an exhibition in San Francisco at a gallery of all circle paintings, and I invented circlism 100 years after Cubism. You know, things come and things go. You know, we're going to be in this neo period now for a long time, probably. So this is the 100th anniversary of Mother Teresa. She would have been 100 years old, and you know she died on the same year as Princess Diana, and they both went to heaven. And St. Peter was there to greet them, and Mother Teresa was already. Princess Di was already there, and Mother Teresa came shortly after that. You know, and Mother Teresa said to St. Peter, "Well, you know, I did a lot of good works. I ministered to the poor, and they're talking about making me a saint, and I was wondering, since you know, Princess Di, she was a good person and everything, but she didn't do as many good works as I did, and I was just wondering, how come she has a halo and I don't?" And St. Peter said, "That's not a halo, it's a steering wheel." That's a groaner. Is this an audience or an oil painting? You having a good time? Tell your face. Now I'm going to say something warm and gracious. Gracious, it's warm in here. Thank you very much. And if you want to buy my book autographed, $20. Not autographed, $21.
really wanted to have Tom here because I love the way having him here brackets San Francisco and New York, which is kind of the story of my life. I was born here, I spent a lot of time in California, came back here, spent a number of years here, and now I'm heading back, so it's great. I promised the providers of the beer that we would show people enjoying Brooklyn Lager. So everybody hold up your Brooklyn Lager. There we go. That should do it for them, huh? Thank you very much.
What about us over here? We want our picture too.
Pardon?
We want our
We were
picture
all
too.
raising our glass.
Oh,
You
right,
missed
sorry.
us.
So you're going to have to do a panoramic. There we go, panoramic. Excellent. All right.
Much better.
All right. I love that all of you are here because, in fact, I do feel that you're all my friends in various ways. And then there's some new friends, the alumni there's some alumni from San Francisco Art Institute, so welcome to all of you too. I want to, yes, welcome to you all. Just a few people to thank. We've had a series of guest bartenders and we'll have others. We had Karen Finley, Arnold promised to do a stint. We had Buzz out there. So thank you to our guest bartenders. There's Kitty. Everybody wants to be sure to say
Hello?
there's Kitty. Be sure to say hi to Kitty. And I want to thank her. Christina's around. Christina from the gallery has done a great job for us wherever she is. Thank you, Christina. Jim and Jane Cohen, thank you so much. Tom, I've thanked you. Jessica, where's Jessica Palmieri? Jessica's hiding over there. Jessica and I have worked together for, what, about 3 years? 2 years? 5 years. Jessica and I have worked together so long it feels like a lifetime, I'm sure, to her. And thank you so much, Jess, for everything, for the party and for all that you've done for me and with me. It's been a great partnership. Thank you so much. And finally, thank you to all of my friends for helping to complete this piece. Thanks a lot.
I would like to make a toast to Charles by everybody blowing in their bottle at the same time. Ready? Ready? Everybody go.